Welcome, everyone, to our Tuesday, November 12th seminar for our fall series. I am Kimberly Williams. I am the Senior Program Manager at the U.S. Asia Technology Management Center. And I just want to welcome everyone and say thank you for joining us today. We are very grateful for the kind and generous support of our 17 member companies. So we are an affiliate program, and we have 17 member companies who, with their support, give us the ability to deliver courses and programming that you get to enjoy today. So I get to introduce our guest moderator for today, Dr. Amit Kapoor. He is the honorary chairman for the Institute for Competitiveness in India. He is a longtime friend, collaborator, and advocate for all of the research and the programming that we do at the U.S. Asia Technology Management Center. And we're very, very glad that he's able to join us today, since he will be captaining our ship, given that our normal captain, Dr. Richard Dasher, is on a flight today. So we are going to be turning over the reins to Dr. Amit Kapoor, who will introduce our guest speaker. Dr. Kapoor, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. We'll just get started. So it's absolutely a pleasure to be here today to moderate the session and have a conversation with Thai. This is part of this exciting series on innovations in supply chain and manufacturing in Asia. And we have a very special person here today. And Thai is somebody who's been an entrepreneur. He's a student or a graduate from the Graduate School of Business and a former CEO of the Data Group. But if you really look at his profile, like, he's a passionate entrepreneur. He's done something amazing in terms of growth strategies, which has transformed his B2B energy startup into a 50 million powerhouse. And of course, he's been very well known for his hands-on relationship. I think Thai would get embarrassed if I say, but he's fairly well known for his business acumen and quite a lot of innovative capacity that he has as a person. And he's worked from launching cutting-edge battery tech to starting an electric mobility venture. So he's somebody who understands the Vietnam country perfectly, understands the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem out there. So that's what it is. But I think I should not really give a lot of introduction here. I would like Thai to really talk about himself as well, because he's somebody, or we should hear from the horse's mouth as to what he is. So Thai, we will just jump into the conversation. Thanks a lot for joining us today. But Thai, over to you. Like, could you share a bit more about yourself? Because I know I've not done justice to what I've just said, like very, very brief introduction. But who are you? Who are you as a person? What have you done?
Yeah, thank you, Amit. I feel humble to be here today, and I look into your work, and I feel even more honored to speak to you today. Yeah, everything you did for India, and I checked some of the books you wrote. Amazing, very relevant to emerging markets. So about me, my name is Thai, and I should address the big elephant in the room that I'm from Vietnam, not from Thailand, because my name caused a lot of confusion for the people at Stanford. More importantly, my name in Vietnamese means intelligent and peaceful, which are not me either. So that adds up the confusion to the name. Yeah, I just graduated from a Stanford MXX program, and I'm an entrepreneur. Prior to that, I built energy company like you said. I think now I want to just say quickly off the bat about Vietnam is that the manufacturing sector accounts for around 24% of Vietnam GDP, and the energy demand in Vietnam is growing roughly 10% a year in the coming year. So I think without a significant change, Vietnam would be locked into a high carbon future, and it's very risky for the economy, risky for the manufacturing sector. So today I would like to share some of my perspectives on that with you and with the audience.
Oh, thank you, Thai. And as we go deeper into this, like as you've been a serial entrepreneur, you're somebody who's really created enterprises. So could you tell us more about your enterprise as well?
Yeah. My company, yes, I work in the energy sector before, and I work in the state-owned enterprise. And one thing I saw in that journey is that customers, they always come to us to ask for information. They always come to say, hey, how are you doing? Like, give us some update, give us some information, because we kind of don't hear back from you, and that's very common practice. And I think the customer services in the B2B sector was kind of poor, and the trust level between the supplier and customer is low as well. So I started a company trying to solve that problem. And so I started a B2B business company, and basically we design, build, and operate a fuel system for B2B company, providing propane and natural gas. Companies such as steel manufacturer or a food company or battery company are our customers. And since the company grow, I think I ran the company for 7 years, and it's keep growing. I left the company last year before coming to the GSB, and at that time we make around 50 million in sales, and hiring. I had people both full-time and part-time.
So, Thai, just a curious question. You have worked with the state-owned enterprises as well, as you said. So what has been the difference in your experience before we dive into your idea of economy? From your experience perspective, how was your experience of working in a state-owned enterprise and running a private enterprise?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would like to share with you about my background, and then that's related to the work culture that I joined in the state-owned enterprise. So I grew up in outside of Saigon, in a small town. It's a very poor, kind of less information and poor education. And my parents, they are kind of tiger Asian parent, so very hostile environment at home. I'm fearful of them. I'm kind of very fearful, and my voice always being suppressed. I couldn't express my idea, opinion to them. So it's been significantly planned into me the emotion of making mistake, and the need of satisfy somebody else. So when I moved to that culture, I start off with not with the energy sector. I work in the finance sector, but I really like the energy, so I moved to that. But then realized very similar environment, very kind of dinosaur environment. It's very top down, and it not happens only to the employees, happen to the customer as well. So it's come back to me, the feeling, and I said, wow, I need to do something else. I need to try to do something differently. And one of the disruption, I call this disruption, but actually it's kind of very basic, is a FAQ for the energy sector. So all the questions the customer can ask and will have to ask when they implement their project, we make it online. We make it accessible to everyone. And it just, that example remind me of like how and why I started that company. And by building a company, the focus is not like only about the customer. I want to provide an environment that the youth, the Vietnamese young people have the voice. they can speak up in the company, they can contribute to the way we work, they can test and fail and bounce back and do something more innovative. So that's the whole idea behind starting the company and provide other people a chance to do something better for the economy, for Vietnam, for society. So that's my intention.
And did you ever get any pushback when you were doing this, because you were trying to do something very different? You were trying to be disruptive in that environment from culturally, which was, as you said, more dinosaur-like. So any pushback from friends and foes or people who were joining your enterprise, or did you have some struggles on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. As you can imagine, my parents even asked me like, why you quit a job? Why become an entrepreneur? If you do that here in the Silicon Valley, maybe you got people support you. But there, just me, my friends, and some people believe in that idea at the beginning. So very few people push back. I think when we progress into grow the company and the business, yeah, there's some people couldn't understand why like you have to build that culture, why you have to um spend an hour a day every week, no an hour every week for people in your company just to do some communication talk, like present some idea. It's like we mimic the TED Talk version and allow people to speak up, and that's very rare. And they always ask us like, why don't you just go out and do something else? Like, why always stick to your team and try to listen to them and spend so much time to do so. So yeah.
Hi, this is fascinating. We could actually have this complete conversation on the idea of culture, but we would go back to what we are here to talk about. So could you just give us an understanding of the Vietnam's manufacturing sector and your experience around it? Because of course you started something very fascinating for supporting the manufacturing sector. So could you just give us an overview?
Yeah. Thank you, Amit. You remind me about the time when I woke up around 6 a.m. and finished my job at like 10 p.m. kind of every day. Yeah, it's of course it's very early days, but that's how we work. We move from point A to point B around multiple locations to meet the factory, to talk to people, spend a lot of time, try to understand and the market, and also let people know about our brand name. So during that travel and talk to people and companies, I kind of see a few things. The first, I would say, is a big transition from coal and diesel oil as a fuel to use natural gas and propane in the manufacturing sector from 2017 until the time I quit the business last year. I think is a big transition boosted by the environmental regulation from the government and from the FDI company overseas who really use either natural gas or propane or something higher end than coal or diesel oil, and they demand a big volume of those gas. Second thing, I think there's a growing of number of industrial parks in Vietnam. I have a slide that I can share you, and then it should make the points more clear. So right here, this slide, it shows the number of industrial parks across the country, now over 500 clusters, and it just double every like first 5 years, and then the next 10 years it double again. So there's growing numbers of these IPs, and there's some role model from Japanese company, they came and they do exactly what they did in Japan. It's like they collaborate and build an industrial park with very good infrastructure, very care about the environment, and it set new standard for the new player into the market to do so, to adopt the sustainability standard. The third, I think Vietnam is very close to China, and the reliance on China inputs is significant, from machinery to raw material, knowledge, like technology, know-how. Even with, for example, like I can tell you a story. I saw a company, they came to Vietnam and started building. It's a Chinese company, and on the process from starting up the construction until they sell it to overseas, 100% of their partner, like not 100, maybe like 95% of their partner are Chinese company as well. Even the construction team, they like Chinese people who set the business in Vietnam, who help them to build a factory. So I think that's one of another significant observation that I can share with you in the manufacturing environment in Vietnam.
So that's very fascinating, the domination of Chinese talent within your area and the rise of industrial parks. So what drove this rise of industrial parks? Was it a governmental policy that was really being pushed forward in how they were deciding on the locations of those industrial parks? Because I'm sure it had a huge implication for the rise of manufacturing within Vietnam as well.
Yeah, I think there's one slide that can tell about this point. I think we have here the GDP. Our GDP is driven by manufacturing, and the government set the policies of attracting FDI capital from, I think, 10, 15 years ago, and it's keep building the ecosystem that where we have like Samsung build a factory here. They build their main operation in Vietnam. Other companies, American company like Intel. So that's just a few examples, but because of the policies that attract the influx of capital from overseas to Vietnam, that encourage the local people to open industrial parks. And we have one more point I can tell. We have 64 provinces in Vietnam, and every provinces, they wanted to have one piece of the cake for themselves. So that's why, not like previously, that just a few provinces they have the capability because it's close to the port. They have like better infrastructure, but move on in the future. I think everywhere we will transform the agriculture land to industrial area. So that's a growing trend, and then we've been keeping so for the near term.
You make a very important point, and that is that there are 64 provinces within Vietnam, and each one of them was looking at having an industrial park. So the question here is that, was there a method to this process in terms of identifying what kind of manufacturing capacity would be built or capability that would be built in these industrial parks? Or was it that it could just be anything under the sun?
As in my experience, we work like a top-down organization. From the top people will say some strategic idea, and then the people down to the top, the bottom or the middle will maybe do differently, and the top they don't know. So maybe we have some regulation about environment. We have like national rules about some environmental topic, but like how the region or the province execute that is another issue. I saw some provinces because they need the company just move there and build a factory. So maybe we use the term flexible, to be more flexible on the definition of environmental standard, and just make it easier for the investor go in and invest, and easier to get the investment license. So I'm not saying it is a significant trend in Vietnam, but it happens only because we everywhere they care about attracting the capital. But I don't think if we put everything on a scale, we should do that, because it's like you said, is the unbalance of capability between provinces.
Mhm. And Thai, as you know, like, of course, there were these industrial parks that were being built up. But the Vietnam also has done something amazing in terms of the growth rates that have actually happened over a period of time. If I'm not wrong, Vietnam has been growing at an average of about 6 to 7% each year. But what are those challenges to sustain this growth, or what were the drivers for this growth beyond the industrial parks, and how was trade moving over a period of time?
Hmm. There's a few points need to be made here. I think when we talk about the challenges, I would say about the challenges first. Look into this graph. It's kind of the very kind of outdated, but still applicable to the country. The forward participation versus the backward participation, which means we need the input from foreign countries more than other countries need our input to make the product to export. Maybe it can be interpreted in a good way, but basically I think it means that the industry is kind of weak because we rely on the input, obviously, from China a lot. So that's one of the challenges. In Vietnam, I talked to some of my friends when they had an idea to build a startup, to build a company, and to produce something. The first thing they will do is they look into the market and see if that products are already made in China, and if so, and in most of the case, all the products can be made in China, and we end up to be a trading partner for China, buying from China and sell local. So our manufacturing capability, I think, be really be prevented to grow further, and our capability we didn't build up our capability during years and just keep doing the easy way. I would say another challenge is like looking to this graph. Vietnam is like among one of the three countries rely the most to U.S. economy, to U.S. demand, which mean in the future, if you can tell about we discuss about the new government, I think if the tariff gonna go up, and it will affect a lot to the consumption in the U.S., and that's why it will decrease the export from Vietnam to the U.S. So another challenge I want to say is that we also rely on U.S. as the main buyer for our product. So that's a big challenge, especially with the new U.S. government. Maybe this one also interesting to look at the electricity generation sources in Vietnam. You can tell you can say you can see that 50% of our electricity generation sources come from fossil fuels. And earlier this year I talked to a company. They have US buyer come to do the due diligence, and after the due diligence they said, unfortunately, we cannot buy from you because your production process consume not enough renewable energy, because we have the ESG standard we need to report, and that just doesn't meet our requirement. And even though they are a big company, they can sell to that US buyer. So I think with the growing of the energy demand, as I said earlier, and manufacturing accounts for a significant amount of our GDP every year, how we solve the problem of the energy transition would be key for future success.
So you make a very important point from a country strategy perspective. One is that, of course, this huge dependent on US and the changing political system in the US, wherein you're expecting higher tariffs. What do you think Vietnam should do? Because this actually leads me to a question, like, what are the other sets of challenges that Vietnam could be facing? One is, of course, the changing discourse within the US system, your huge dependence on small set of countries for the manufacturing sector, like say you say Mexico, Canada are huge partners. How do you really diversify? And what are the other set of challenges that you see within the manufacturing sector?
You remind me of one of the first day I sat down in my office when we just started a company and think about how we can build a company bigger and how to make it like more international. And I do some top-down analysis. I think the conclusion, I'm not sure if I should talk about that here, but rely on the top a lot. That means rely on the people with power. That means the government, the public sector. I think the manufacturing sector in Vietnam benefits so much from the government because they paved the way for better policy, attracting a lot of capitals. Recently, for example, with the semiconductor industries like booming, they already make a plan, a strategic plan to attract more semiconductor players into Vietnam. Expecting until 2035, we're going to generate around $50 billion a year from semiconductor. And they also plan to, this is the process that only applicable for the semiconductor industry. If they come and build a business in Vietnam, they will get the investment license quicker and on the process, reducing on the bureaucracy. So I think the manufacturing sector in Vietnam beneficial a lot from the government, but the question is like the efficiency of the public sector. In my opinion, I know some people in the government or in the big firm. For example, if you are a big company in the US, you shake hand to our prime minister in New York, in Paris, and then you want to come to Vietnam, you end up to work with that person. Now there's some middle manager people who really understand their organization, understand how to run and what is like the pros and cons of their organization. They sitting there, they work there for 20 years. We fire the people on the top quicker than we expected, and those people who actually understand about the system, they still there. And I think that cause inefficiency. And my point is that we may be very quick and responsive to the change of the world, but the effectiveness rely on how the public sector really change and innovate and be more proactive. And it's like a startup. You understand the team and you make sure everyone get along with you and build the alignment between like from top down. So that's the key for success for not only the manufacturing sector but for Vietnam, is my opinion.
Mhm. No, that's very fascinating, Thai. And when you're saying that how productivity for the public sector has to increase and one of the challenges that exists. But you also made a very important point, and we also have a question from the audience on this. And that was that, like you said, that the energy needs for Thailand are going to grow at about 10% annually. Where is this energy going to come from? Because that would be a huge challenge for a geography like yours.
Yeah, I will share this slide. So this slide is withdraw from the Power Development Plan 8 in Vietnam, the updated plan, like the master plan that Vietnam plan for the future of our energy. And you can see, for example, we will reduce the amount of coal until 2050, like come to nothing, and then there's some other new energy growing like add up to the total demand, like wind, solar. I think we also talk about biomass, ammonia. Recently, there's a internal discussion among the government officials about doing nuclear power. Actually, we delayed that project for a couple of years, and we also now we just bring it back to the table. So to answer the question, I think the realistic solution for Vietnam is continuing to do the LNG projects, which are having planning for a couple of years and now delayed by some like policy, and we need to fix that. I it's not because we spend quite a bit into investing in LNG, but more about like is everything in Vietnam, if we have a plan and how much we can pursue and finish that plan is another issue. So I think we're making progress with LNG, and that should be maybe you can stop. I don't know. Maybe it's you do the cost analysis. You can stop. You do some more drilling in onshore at Vietnam. But in terms of strategy, in terms of getting things done, that just the closest we have to ramp up our energy capability.
Mm-hmm. And so this is quite interesting in terms of like how energy structure is going to change, or how energy what do you call packet is going to change over a period of time, whatever be the right word that we use. But like we have seen a lot of transformation within the Vietnam space, or at least within your neighborhood as well, at the time of COVID. So COVID was a transformational time for a lot of countries. And how do you think the manufacturing sector has changed because of COVID?
Yeah, that's bring back memory again. I came to the US March 11th, 2020, like just a few days before the border closed, and I got a very difficult time to come back to the country. But what I see from that period of time, I can tell like during and after COVID in the manufacturing sector. During COVID, it happens to not only Vietnam but other countries as well. Factory closed, job people were laid off. In Vietnam, actually, there's something interesting like this. Company they allocate spaces for people to work, eat, and sleep during COVID at the factory. And it's amazing. I don't know how they can manage that, because some company they have just like only 2 toilets. But that's how resilient the Vietnamese people were during COVID. Doesn't matter, like 100 people or over 1,000 people stay in one place. They really focus and just want to get a job done and support the company as well. But during that time, I think there's also a huge movement of the people who really just came to the city or came to the industrial park to work, and they moved back to their hometown. And even when things become normal again, they didn't come back to work. So it caused a big labor shortage in Vietnam after reopening. But COVID also created a chance for Vietnam speed up our digitalization campaign. We aim to do that for many years, and COVID just like another push for people to think, oh, now we need to think about technology, think about a different way to run the business in delivering our product, make people order online, and that's labor shortage actually forced the company to think about the other creative solution, and digitalization is one of the solutions for that. And I think it helps the country to speed up that process a lot.
So I, of course, one was this movement toward digitization, and that happened. But at the time of COVID, or just about that time, there were huge sets of supply chain disruptions that were happening. There was this whole issue between US and China in terms of like how trade needs to happen. So that was also trying to saying that, or there were enterprises who were thinking of creating alternate supply chains or alternate locations for manufacturing. Did this help Vietnam in some way? And of course, like from external information, we know that it did help the manufacturing sector within Vietnam. What happened, and how much help did actually happen? How did Vietnam, strategize to take the best of the opportunity that was being presented with the challenges that the world was facing?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think about two actions from US buyer. For example, first, when they hear about the tariff, they immediately move to other countries to see if they can buy cheaper from that country, in that case, Vietnam. Second is like how actually they would save from moving their production, like their demand to other countries. Some companies, they invested so much in China. They, like US company, actually own the supply chain in China. And in my experience, many companies here built their facilities in China, and it's not easy for them just to move to another country to buy. But when they buy, the cost of transportation, the quality of the product, the time commitment, everything, they need to train the local people. If you buy something like a bolt or a nut, maybe it's just easy for local people to keep up with that technology and production. But in many cases, it's not easy to just the next day move to the country, try to buy from that and get exactly what they want. So I think in the bigger picture, yes, of course, Vietnam beneficial from the US pivot from China products, but at the same time, it's not everyone can sell to the US, and not every, like, I don't think we absorb the most benefits from that movement. Other countries, we have other competitors as well in the region, Malaysia, Indonesia, or Thailand, and the US buyers or European buyers, they have other options to buy. So yeah.
And if you were an enterprise and you had to make a choice in terms of really looking at an alternate supply, what I call partner from one of the countries. So if you talk about Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, India, etc., like how would you really make a choice? Because what are those parameters that will happen? And I'm asking that question because I see Vietnam's manufacturing sector to be fairly resilient. It has done something fantastic, as you've also already shared, this whole idea of industrial parks to moving into a very specific idea in terms of like what those industrial parks are going to do. How do you think enterprises will make a choice? And what is it that, what do you call, the government is doing or moving ahead on this?
Yeah, I think as a Vietnamese, I should say, I must say it's Vietnam. But I also think Vietnam is a good partner for production for manufacturing. I think more than 12 months, but the US, China, and Russian presidents, they all visited Vietnam. And we also signed like around 18 free trade agreement with all the region, all the countries around the world. So I think the ecosystem is very kind of ready for you to set up your footprint there and start selling is comparing to other countries. And the bamboo diplomacy is beneficial for any foreign enterprise set up their manufacturing in Vietnam as well. And I think moving forward, but I think they're resilient in the way they collaborate with developing country. They need to prepare for that patient, prepare for that mentality because people there they need the training, they need the education. They're very dedicated to finish the job and do things right. But they need a mentor. They need someone go there and really open up and teach them how to work. And I think in that terms, I would say Vietnam, but really prepare for that because every choice is like pros and cons. So but if you're aware of that, I think there's plenty of opportunities there in Vietnam.
Nice. But Thai, like one of the issues as I look at it, in fact, I just wrote a piece yesterday on biodiversity, climate, and the kind of things that are happening around the world and how it can actually cause catastrophes across the board. How do you think is the idea of climate change going to affect a place like Vietnam? Because I think every country is going to get affected, and I'm sure Vietnam is not going to be what I call aloof to this kind of change, or it's going to be it might not get affected. It will get affected. How do you see this happening or shaping up over a period of time?
Yeah, yeah. I like when I work in Vietnam, I rode a motorbike from my home to the workplace. And I kind of remember previously, it's not a problem for me just not wearing a mask when I go outside. And then it came to a point that the pollution is very bad. It's like almost unbreathable. And I like never wanted to use a motorcycle again because I was fearful of that pollutant. It happens now in Vietnam. Big cities in Vietnam is among the top polluted city considering the air quality in the world. Even though we accounted just only 1% of CO2 emission globally, but the situation in Vietnam, because of you can imagine how many factories, how fast they grow comparing how good we implement our environmental regulation doesn't match up with that. So that causes a big pollution situation. And I think moving forward to solve that problem, the Vietnam government, the top government, they really commit into net zero, like as Paris Agreement. But again, they also make a plan, like you said, like phase out coal by 2050. So there's a lot of thinking about how to solve that. I think the issues and the key of success here relies on how efficient and how quick they will react, and how fast they will come up with a solution. I think in the future, in the past, we compete by cheap labor and convenient, um, and to attract foreign capital. Moving forward, green manufacturing is a solution. We need to trade off the cheap labor with, maybe it costs more costly to produce in Vietnam, but that's how we should compete in the future. And that's my idea. I don't know if I answer your question, but that's the whole theory and assumption about the energy transition in Vietnam that rely on the people with power. Yeah.
No, you make an important point here, because what you're effectively saying is that the country will have to get ready for the future. Your whole model for development will have to improve from cheap labor to doing something else, either improving productivity, etc. But you know, like when you talk about this change, then I have to really ask you a question, like, and the importance of research and development here. So, you know, like, how is the Vietnam industry, or how is the government incentivizing research and development within the manufacturing space or within the manufacturing sector? Because if you really look at US, and when I talk about US has been at the helm of research and development for over decades, and that's been the driver of its competitiveness and productivity over a period of time. So how is Vietnam looking at this as an idea?
Yeah, maybe I repeat myself if I answer this question, but again, as an outsider or other people, even within the country, we see a lot of ambitious goal from the government. We see objectives, we see people, and then the follow up newspaper gonna do a story about that, and that's kind of a confusion of, oh, really, we really support R&D and innovative in semiconductor. One example is after we announced that strategy, I think there's a movement and the action from the universities in Vietnam to train students and to meet up with the demand of 50,000 chip engineer by 2030, and we actually work on that. But at the end, at 2030, I'm curious to see the result of it, because I'm trying to be neutral here. I'm trying to speak about my experience. Many times we saw something big and ambitious become ignored and become washed away because of something else just happened. So yeah, always Vietnam has some encouragement, motivate people to do clean tech energy, to support the energy efficiency in the country. But we don't have a role model for that. Like big energy company in Vietnam, I don't think they public anything about their. I think they do, but the understanding from the public from the people in the country about, oh, will target to be a sustainable country by 2030. we are the energy company who would do A, B, and C to really to save Vietnam from climate change and reduce our CO2 emission. That was not known by the Vietnamese. So there's that gap. I think once again I will say about a gap between how we really do that and what we want. So there's always a gap in that.
Mhm. And hi, just moving ahead, we have really talked about a vast expanse of ideas in terms of the challenges in Vietnam or within the manufacturing space, how the global headwinds could actually have an impact, how climate change can have an impact. But given all the things that we are looking at and how the world is changing, what do you think the future holds for Vietnam? And how do you think it is going to change, drive the future, etc.?
Yeah, the past few years we really take action on crack down corruption, and that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing for the country when the government think about that and really take action. But it also create a kind of a fearful environment among like government officials. They kind of do nothing rather than signing on some approval project that maybe cost them a career or even freedom. So I hope in the because now the new government is set, and I hope from this point the focus will shift it back to build an economy to allow foreign investor come and really implement what we plan for. That's one thing. Second thing, as you can see in this slide, the growing middle class, rapidly, and I think there's some like some people told me that one in four people, one like 25% of Vietnamese like moving ahead to the middle class in the next 5 years. So that's a very significant change, and it will push the economy. The third idea I would want to say is that again about the energy structure in Vietnam. I hope to see more movement in solving climate change and supply enough energy, electricity for the industry, for own sectors, for people in Vietnam, because I'm curious to see how we can move from 50% currently reliance on fossil fuels to achieve our goal in 2030 and 2050. That would be the future, like I think the target of the government for for moving to the future.
Hi, so these are important issues, and in your slide you make a very important point, and there are 3 points out there on your slide. One is rising incomes, urbanization, and demographics. Could you give us more data on this in terms of like how income profiles are changing? What are the state of urbanization? How is it what is driving urbanization to how the demographics are changing? Because in your very close to you in Japan, aging is a big problem. How do you see the demography within Vietnam? Is there a dividend that you're really talking about? So could we just delve deeper into this?
I don't have that slide here, but currently Vietnam have the GDP per capita around $4,000, and we set the target of become a high income country by 2045. That's announced by the government. And yeah, I really don't have the data to discuss about growing in the middle class.
Yeah. So, but you make an important point here, Thai, and you said that Vietnam would be a high income country by 2045.
Yeah.
Uh, so when you're saying that, then you're effectively saying that your per capita incomes are going to be 5 times higher than what they are
Mm.
today. So you will effectively be close to about $20,000 per capita, which is $4,000.
Mm.
How do you think this increase of 5 times of per capita income is going to affect or impact the society? How is it going to impact businesses? How is it going to impact the world around you?
Mm. Interesting question. We still in the golden period of like the people in the labor force. I think it will happen in the next 10 to 20 years for Vietnam with that golden population. And 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 so far, one thing I can tell is that many people actually move out of the city because they cannot incur the higher cost living in the city. But with the data and with the analysis, we keep saying we're gonna growing the in middle class. So in my opinion, that would be separate a lot of like poor people and the middle class people. Even though with 20,000 K, I think many people in Vietnam currently they don't see a future how they can achieve that number, especially people in the public sector, because we in Vietnam government we historically keep the people wage very low, and right now the base salary is about 20 like 90 US dollar a month, like base salary for the public sector, and when we see about the in middle class growing, I cannot see how those people, even though the government will keep increasing salary like 7% a year in the coming years, I don't see like how in that 10 years or 20 years, a lot of people will even achieve that dream number and move to that middle income um, section. So in my experience, I think we'll divide it and we'll separate and we'll reallocate the jobs and will encourage a big change. That's the challenge. That's also the opportunity. And I think consuming maybe local consuming trade will expose in the future. So those are good opportunity for company to think about doing business in Vietnam.
Mhm. So, Thai, you of course talk about a challenge of, say, disparity that might actually happen, but we will keep it there. But I would like to ask you another question here. And if Vietnam has to be a developed economy by 2045, it's not going to happen just as is. It is not going to happen if you're growing at 6%. You'll have to grow much faster. And for that, you will have to bring in certain set of regulatory and policy changes. Well, what kind of changes do you think are required moving forward? Because if you don't grow at about 9% or 8%, if you grow at about 8% only, then you will double every 10 years. And that means you will, at that time, in 20 years, you will get to about 20, to the target that you're really talking about.
You ask about like one policy change or like
Yes. What kind of policy change or regulatory
Mm.
changes would you like to see to achieve this idea of a developed nation by 2045?
Yeah, I keep saying about the public sector, not because like I have experience working in that sector, but I do think if there's something I want to change is that improving or increasing the efficiency of the public sector. And how we do that by thinking about people's salary, thinking about I mean, that's cost inflation, that's cost, you know, a lot if we try to increase salary, obviously. But how, like, in my opinion, I'm not like an economist or somebody like research about the economy and how country will grow. But I think any developed country or growing country, they need an efficient government and effective policy. And so maybe not one policy, but maybe something changing about the way the government work, the way the public sector really operate and support the private sector and really bring on the efficiency in the system. Many people there barely survive to work for a public sector. They need to do like second job um, so that they can feed their family. So I think with that mindset, with that worriness, no one will come to work and really serve the private sector or serve the country. So that's my assumption and my hope to change. One thing would be change in Vietnam or improve.
Mm-hmm. And Thai, as the world moves ahead, as the competitive space changes, uh, enterprises in Vietnam will have to become part of the global value chains.
Yeah.
And they are already part of that. But how do you think they're going to integrate well within the global supply chains and how they are going to move forward? Because this is all going to be important for making the country to move ahead.
Yeah. So we look into this slide. I can tell okay, let's talk about the global value chain. We have like the top of designing a product or doing like producing raw materials to the to the very bottom of selling and marketing and work with the customers and in Vietnam the value of the top we produce agricultural products like rice, shrimp, fish, or crude oil. On the very bottom, working directly with customers. I mean, like people globally. I don't think there's a presence of a Vietnam product. So the value we offer to the global value chain is remain in the middle, which means assembly process, like buying from inputs from one country and do the assemble it and sell it to another country. And I don't think we try to move away from this middle of the global value chain by doing like semiconductor. We try to be like the top, the leader countries in producing chip and supplying engineers. But yeah, I think moving forward, it just need a lot of effort and try to work on new ideas and new product and new solution so that we really participate more into the global value chain. And semiconductor or AI actually is kind of like the realistic way for us to move because it's new and it's capable for Vietnam to achieve rather than traditional sector and something we already been doing for years, like textiles or electronic parts.
Mm-hmm. So, hi, I'll just come back to the questions, but I would just like to request the audience and the participants in case they have a question. We are just left with about 8 minutes for this webinar, and I would just try to integrate those into the conversation. But Thai, you make an important point that you have to upgrade your manufacturing sector. You have to go into other areas and stuff, but every country is effectively trying to do the same thing there. So how will Vietnam create that difference in terms of when you're competing with other countries? What do you think should be done?
Oh, you asked me on the tough question. I wish I could have like very nice answer for that. I think we as again we in golden age of like population with a huge labor force, and people in Vietnam kind of very smart um and that's just one thing beneficial for building, for example, again the semiconductor industry. um One thing we should do, um I don't I kind of I don't see we can move away from relying on manufacturing as a key push for the economy, and I think we need to change that ecosystem of manufacturing. And one thing for the future, because I work in the energy sector before, I care about sustainability and clean tech. I hope Vietnam will be a place that where people think about green manufacturing, they will go there because everything ready. They have the energy, they have the people with know-how, with knowledge, trained people in sustainability, so that we will compete not like at the moment, but for the next 20 years in the future. I think that's how we should think and prepare for that. Move away from cheap labor to green manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. And as we are coming to the close of our conversations, I'm left with, I have about 2 or 3 questions, so we'll move into that.
Yeah.
What do you think other countries could learn from Vietnam? As you're a keen student of, or I might say you're a practitioner of manufacturing space, you've, what do you call, been in this area. What do you think countries can learn from Vietnam and its experience?
Yeah, I think the Vietnamese government is very unique in the way of be friend with everyone. It may be risky because not everyone like each other, so become a friend of all the nations in the world. There's a pros and cons on way, but I think it's very significant. That helps the country and the economy to grow. Um, like there's a slide here, not making by me, but let me see. But actually, they mention about geopolitics as a one of the pillar for growth, and I think that's kind of one lesson other countries can learn from. Maybe become a friend-shoring country for make friends with everyone in the world, and that may be very helpful for the economy. And I think that's one of the unique thing Vietnam has experienced.
Mm-hmm. And so this has been a very interesting conversation, Thai, but I still have a question to ask. Now, if you have to relive your life as an entrepreneur, and because of you've moved away from your enterprise, what is that space or sector? Would you continue to do it in the energy sector, or you would like to do something else when you go to Vietnam and if you want to start another enterprise?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think, yeah, I think about that in the way of the B2B sector in Vietnam. They operate within very many constraints about the energy supply, about the electricity. They will use because they have no control on that. And the space in their factory are not very big to build a solar farm or maybe solar rooftop, but they are not enough for them to be more efficient, to really solve the issues of climate change. So I would think about an energy efficiency solution for the B2B sector, and I would really push hard, because I think, considering the future of green manufacturing, considering the demand in the world for green products, and considering the constraint of a lot of factory in Vietnam, I think there's other in-house solution not requiring a lot of space that can really help companies to tackle climate change. I've been thinking about, and I was looking into waste heat technology, ORC. So they capture the waste heat from production process and make electricity. And I'm super fascinating about that technology. So that will be my future focus.
Mm-hmm. And hi, one of the last questions from my side, though. Where do you see Thai as a person? Like, if I because we started, right? So where do you see Thai as a person and an entrepreneur in the next few years? Where is your next what I call stop, or what is the next aspirational thing that you're doing which can motivate future sets of people who get into the space?
I hint to you before, but I would say I was a very distracted student in the past, you know. So there's a story. In the last year of my college, I came into the hotel. They have like a study abroad fair. There's many tables, and that's my first time to see something like that. And I walk into a table and see a student and look into the university. They are American university. I have no idea about anything about that. I just asked him, yeah, what this university about? What this college? How can I get in there? He looked at me and he said, kind of, no, this is a like very top tier college in the States. You can make it. So don't think about that. And I was thinking about myself, like, wow, how do you know? I mean, like, just look at me and how do you know? Because I was really convinced into that idea. It was like how bad I was as a student, very distracted and not knowing many things, and bounce back from that incident to achieve other things. So um and every time when I bounce back from any kind of fail incidents, I thought, oh, this is the end. This is the end of the struggle. I'm now perfect. I'm now knowing many things. So even now, I don't think it's true. Even like after graduated from Stanford GSV, one thing I learned from that experience is that lifelong learning attitude. And I want people to look at me as a person who maybe coming with humble background, maybe not knowing a lot of things, but have the resilience as a Vietnamese to bounce back, to learn, to grow, and have a growth and life learning mindset. So that's how I will present myself to other people.
This has just been such a fascinating interaction. I know we have to close this, but we could have gone on for much more time. But this was a great conversation wherein we were able to talk from Thai as a person to Vietnam as a country, to the challenges, to how the idea of productivity, to COVID, and so on and so forth. So we transcended a lot of areas, and I think it's such a great learning experience for me. I learned so much from this session, and I'm sure the audience as well and the participants as well learned so much after listening to this interaction. Thai, thanks a lot and for taking out time for this interaction. It's just been a pleasure having this or doing this with you. Thank you.
Pleasure
And
is mine. Thank you, Amit.
thank you. Kimberly, over to you, please.
And I'd like to extend a great big thank you to Dr. Kapoor for moderating a very interesting conversation. I think you guys covered a lot of ground, although clearly there's a lot to discuss about the future of Vietnam. So thank you both for being here. Everyone, that brings a close to our session. We'll be back together next week, back in our normal auditorium in our hybrid environment. So we hope to see you there. Thank you. Have a good night.